obviously great conversation, lots of great, advice on kind of where the monetization of the pipe, so to speak, is going. And, from land grabs to leveraging, uh, broadband to be the pipe to the world, to, how it really affects all things from smart grids and AI and infrastructure. So I'd just like to go around robin, like what kind of some parting thoughts on kind of where, any final thoughts you have on this topic, and anything you want to tell your peers, your audience, or the communities, because at the end of the day, this actually podcast was created about trying to support the communities that we hold really dear. So I'll start with Jordan.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time, we see ourselves as telecom companies, we see ourselves as providers, and we know that we provide a very important infrastructure piece to the cities and towns we service. And I maybe this is not the right correlation, but there are people in your communities, there are people in my communities that hold us in the same standards of the police officer and the firefighter. There are people that think that way, and I think if you, at least in our market, I think if you ever find yourself deviating from realizing that, you'll lose. And I think there's so many opportunities as a company where you want to run and you want to grow the business and you want to put the fiber in the ground and you want to do these things. And I once saw Beck Sports in an obituary. We made an obituary. I mean, that's when you've made it, right? And one of the statements was, Janice, she passed away and she was 85 and she loved spending her nights watching her kids play on Beck Sports. And so you don't really understand the play you have in people's lives as their outlet to the world. And sometimes at least in our case, it's not the outlet to the world, it's the outlet to the world outside of their home. And it may be down the street, right? They may not be able to go to that game that's 6 blocks away because it's 30 below and they're old and they're frail and they'll slip and they'll fall and they just can't go anymore. So to be able to offer that service and to get handmade cards, the cookies, the same type of deal. Our guys are signing autographs at places, and the people, I've had a beer or two bought for me on an overnight trip at a bar at a town of 400. I spent a week at a town of 400 one night. So, I mean, you just don't understand the impact you have. And I think we can get lost in the idea that go, run, grab. You got to get to the next step. And I think those are great pieces. I think we all have to do those to continue to be sustainable. But I think it's important, as I know Karem and Brian have mentioned, and maybe a little bit different for Daniel, but just the idea that when you have those opportunities to maybe take a step back and people kind of put the impact you have in their daily life front and center, take advantage of them. They don't come all that often. I think sometimes they're overlooked. So take advantage of them and realize when you have the opportunity that you truly do make an impact in people's lives, and realize that they want you to be successful just as much as you want you to be successful. And if you keep that in mind, it makes coming to work a hell of a lot easier.
Awesome. Great insight. Karim?
I'll echo Jordan. I'm gonna reach out to him and make sure that we have him, give our next podcast to our customers.
I mean, hey, for a small nominal fee,
I'm
available at your disposal.
Yeah, I went to school in Minnesota. I know all about North Dakota. My all-time best friend is from Dickinson, North Dakota. So you guys are nuts out there.
Minnesota grain belt premium of the folks over in Minnesota. So little flavor for you, Karim. Absolutely.
I'll just say, look, if I think to our peers, I would say, let us keep on being the light. No pun intended. I think we're doing something that's going to have a generational impact. I really, really believe that to my core. What we do will live on decades, maybe generations after we are long gone. And hopefully when we're gone, we have a smile on our face because we should be proud of what we did. To the communities, I would say, find some partner that you trust. Find some partner that you can talk with. Find some partner that is transparent, honest, and has your best interest in ours, because that overlap of private and public benefit, I think, is very, very magical in today's world. So, if you're a community looking at doing a municipal broadband build, find a nice, valuable partner that gets you, that your DNA matches their DNA, because I think there's a multiplier effect over there. And I would say this, that there are dynamics and movements throughout history. And I think we're in one of the largest ones like that. the predominant difference is, I truly believe that the consumer is at the middle of making some very tectonic decisions. And I believe it's our financial fiduciary and ethical obligation to encourage that, foster that, make sure that it lives on and on and on. Because I think our kids and their kids will probably be the recipients of a new way of an economic order that's inclusive. It has to be inclusive. And I would urge the communities, and I would urge the ISPs and everybody in this ecosystem, whether it is communities of color, communities of immigrants, communities of economically disenfranchised, we have to make sure they're part and parcel of the decision making. Because otherwise, the cost of not doing that, the cost of being exclusionary, the cost of redlining, it's monumental. And I don't think we can afford that anymore as a global human society. So
awesome. Obi-Wan Worthen.
I don't know how I can top that. I really don't.
I'm glad you're going next.
I do know that in a future program, we should talk about the link between Star Trek and broadband, because there's a whole red shirt aspect of those that don't make it, right? Which everybody knows that's a Star Trek fan. The red shirt guys never make it. They never make the show.
Never make it.
There are a number of providers that are out there to make money. There are a number of providers out there that are big and they have an obligation to return money to their investors. And I don't think those are the providers are going to move the needle. And I think what we've talked about tonight is the emotion tied to a provider that wants to do well by their community. We could all be in a different business that's probably a lot easier. And I always tell people that we're in a business that's funny. Nobody ever calls us and says, my internet is fantastic. It just doesn't happen, right? You only hear from people that are frustrated and upset. And our job is to do better at that. And I think we have an advantage, but the people on this on this video and the people who have been on the past videos and people that Daniel mentioned, like at FISPA and some other groups, they want to do right by their customers. They want to do right by their communities. And that's who is going to move the needle in today's market. It's easy to go build something and construct something in a community and move on, right? And you don't have that same relationship. This is about relationships. It's actually not about a return on investment or monetizing. I would contend that we're the anti-monetizers. We're the guys that forge ahead, hoping for a good result and trying to build that local capital with the community that will allow us to have a good living and leave us feeling with a sense of accomplishment. And I used to ride around town with a guy that was in construction. We drive by a building and say, I worked on that building. I worked on that building. I think that's what we're going to be in the future. We're going to be the guys that in our old age are going to be driven around by our grandkids and say, I worked in that town and I did. You see that fiber ped right there? We did that. And that's what we're in business for.
Some sooner than later. I'm 35. You guys are a hell of a older than me. I mean, I think Daniel's in my
Come on, guy.
Everyone else, Daniel and I are together, but everyone else, you guys, I mean, you're old, so hate to be the bearer of bad news.
All
right, Daniel.
Yeah,
any parting thoughts?
These are tough acts to follow. I wanted to just side note before I leave. I was curious if Jordan, do you have a sound effects machine in there? Because like, do you do like DJ work on the side too?
No, I do call games broadcaster, actual TV
well,
broadcaster.
I mean, not DJ, but like, do you have a sound effects machine? I'm just curious.
No.
Okay, all right. No. I was just curious, but
up at the Howard Stern show.
These are really really good points, and like I said, it's really hard to follow. I think the points of generational impact and the idea that we'll all be making impact today that has permanent positive effect in the communities that we operate in is really what, I mean, that just motivates I think everybody in our industry, and I think that is a big deal. Just to round out the fiber snob perspective, I really think to do this right, like for some reason we haven't been able to do this right. I mean, we live in the greatest country in the world, and we still can't figure out how to get broadband, like real broadband that's scalable for the future, to all Americans. Like we were able to do that with POTS lines, and we can't figure this out for broadband, 20 years later.
For everybody
And-
that knows POTS lines, that's your analog line that you call. So people that don't know what POTS, plain old telephone line.
Plain old telephone.
I mean,
Jordan needed the explanation.
Oh, no,
I kind of take this speech to our state legislature, and I was multiple times told, you cannot say that to these people, because these are the people that think they're doing a good job.
Mm.
But I've told them, like, I am embarrassed for our state. Like, we're in, we've continually been in the bottom 1/5, right? And our country, who's not typically in the top 10. And like I said, we're the most innovative country in the world, and we can't figure this out. Like, what is going on? And this is the opportunity of a lifetime. Like, probably the one thing, well, there's two things. I mean, one of the primary things has been funding, and I think that will be sufficiently solved. The other one is competition, and really a lack of, I think people, policymakers, communities, even consumers think that that's dangerous. And I think the fact that you're pouring so much money into it is going to overwhelm the system that has got all of these protections around competition. And I think we're going to finally break that barrier. And I think we need to let people know, let policymakers know, let community members and community stakeholders know that competition is extremely valuable. You want to embrace it. You want to allow competitive interest in, and you want a choice for your people, because that's really what creates, good service, innovative products, and high value, whether it's speed or lower cost. And so you combine these forces together, and I think we're going to balance out, and it has to be fiber. Like, if you want to do it today, like, maybe Elon Musk will solve all our problems in the next 20 years. But if you want to do it today, you have to get an infrastructure out there that is highly scalable for the next 20 years. Like, we can theorize about wireless in your next podcast if you want. But we all know what will work today, and we finally have the funding to probably do it. So we better do it right. Like, this is our industry's chance to do it right and cut the crap with all the anti-competitive behavior and all the political BS. Let's do it right.
All right, so let's close it out with our host, Mr. Hollister. Let's close out on your final parting thoughts for episode 7.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you all for being part of this. It's one of the best parts of Nick and I's job is being able to work with folks like you all, and our mission is so great. I mean, we are doing such great things, and this is such a great cast that it's just amazing to be a part of this movement, and it is about digital equity, right? And it is the fabric, clearly, that's continuing to stitch our communities together, right? Not only locally, but statewide, nationally, worldwide. And I think what I'm hearing today is there's a couple takeaways in my mind that are really sticking out. You know, we need to continue to run as fast as we can to connect as many people as we can, and we need to be able to do that in a way where we're connecting with the community leaders. We have a great responsibility in making sure that as we're building and we're going really fast, that we're making sure we're connecting and bringing up the community as fast as possible too. And if we do this right, it's like, you know, the tide that rises, you know, raises all boats, right? And there's a big aspect that when we're educating the community, we've got to make sure that we're educating all aspects of the community. You know, people prior to the pandemic thought every metro is just good, they're fine. And what we realized is there's holes within the metros, right? And a lot of it is about digital equity and education and getting these folks connected to affordable access. So we have a great responsibility in being community leaders and carrying this flag. And we need to make sure that we're helping these communities go on this journey. There's so many communities that just don't know where to start. And they're so focused on just putting, you know, the glass in the ground, but what's really the business model and how are you going to make sure everyone's going to get connected? And so I think we can do a great job by educating the community while moving very quickly. And what I'm really hearing is this is about speed, right? And the beauty of it is today is the service providers don't have to provide all the services, right? And nor do you want. You're providing and enabling a platform for many decades of innovation to come. And for us to be a part of that is truly one of the greatest humbling aspects of our life, right? And we have a ton of work to do. And let's stay focused, let's stay hungry, let's continue to inspire, you know, our teams to work crazy long hours and stay focused on doing the greater good. Because you guys, all of you, all of us, we're doing this, and this is a great responsibility that we all have, and it's going to be something that will be talked about for generations. You know, I talked with someone the other day that was part of building the highway system, and the stories that came from that were so cool, and the impact that their company had. And where it ultimately went from being part of just such a major movement. Guys, we're there, we're in the middle of it. And it's never been more exciting. And so I would just encourage all of you to stay strong, stay focused. You know, we do these things to drink beer together and have fun and continue to fight the fight. And let's continue to make it happen, because to Daniel's point, we have a ton of work to do. And there's a ton of folks that, you know, the digital divide is a digital chasm right now. And because of this last year, it's even more important. And if COVID's done one thing, it's thrown the fuel on a fire that needs to rage and make sure that everyone understands across all political sides that we all have to stay focused on this and run and continue to get this thing solved. Because once we're connected across this great country, every single person's connected. Just think of the innovation to come. Think of what your kids and their kids will be doing over this network you're building. It makes my
Cheers to that.
In a great way.
Cheers to that.
Cheers,
that sounds like Avengers Assemble, just like in the movies.
You got it, baby.
Oh my goodness.
Thanks, guys.